Welcome to Listen and Sleep. Make yourself comfortable. Let your body relax. Let your shoulders drop. Let your breathing become soft and steady. Today, we are going on a journey. Not across maps, not along roads. Deeper to where the question begins. The simplest and most impossible question. Who am I? Imagine the south of India, Tamil Nadu, a land of ancient temples and palm groves. Here the air is thick with heat and incense. Here rice fields shine emerald after the monsoons. Here gods live in every stone, in every tree, in every spring of water. And in the middle of this plain stands a mountain, solitary, reddish, not too tall, just over 800 meters. But there is something about it, something that draws the eye, something that does not let go. Arunachala. In Sanskrit, the Red Mountain, the mountain of dawn fire. For thousands of years, pilgrims have come to it. For thousands of years, sages have settled in its caves. Hindus believe this mountain is Shiva himself, frozen in the form of stone. Not a symbol of God, but God himself, a pillar of fire piercing heaven and earth. At the foot of the mountain lies the town of Tiruvannamalai, the Arunachaleswarar temple with its gopurams, towers rising into the sky in tiers of carved stone. Bells ring at dawn. Bare feet slap against wet tiles. The scent of jasmine and camphor, smoke from oil lamps rises to the ceiling, disappearing into the darkness of the sanctuary. Here, to this mountain, at the end of the 19th century, came a young man. He was 16 years old. He came without money, without a plan, without a purpose in the ordinary sense. He came because he could not do otherwise. Something called him, something for which he had no name. His name was Venkataraman. Later, the world would know him as Ramana Maharshi. Maharshi means great sage. But then he was not a sage. He was simply a boy in whom something had happened, something that changed everything. He came to the mountain and stayed, not for a day, not for a year, for his entire life. For 54 years, he never left its slopes. He became part of the mountain, and the mountain became part of him. What happened to this young man? What did he find at the foot of Arunachala? And why do thousands of people from all over the world still come here, almost a century after his passing? Ramana did not leave thick books. He did not create complex philosophy. He did not found a religion. He simply sat, simply was present, and asked one question, again and again, to himself and to those who came to him. Who am I? Not what do I do for work, not what is my name, not where do I come from. Deeper. Who is the one who works? Who is the one called by this name? Who is the one born in this place? This question seems simple. A child could ask it, but try to answer. Try to really look, not to think about the answer, but to look. Who is looking? Who is hearing these words right now? Who is lying in the darkness, preparing for sleep? You will say, I. But what is this I? Where is it located? What form does it have? If you close your eyes and search, will you find it? Ramana said, search. Do not take my word for it. Do not accept others' answers. Look for yourself, right now, in this moment. We will speak of his life, of the boy from Madurai who once experienced something strange, an experience of his own death without dying, of the young man who left everything and went to the sacred mountain, of years of silence in the dark underground chambers of the temple, when insects gnawed at his body and he did not notice, of people who found him and stayed near, of questions they asked him and answers he gave or did not give. We will speak of the method, of self-inquiry, of how a simple question can destroy everything you thought you were and reveal what was always here, that which was never born and cannot die. We will speak of the mountain, of the strange bond between a man and stone, of how Ramana wrote hymns to Arunachala as a lover writes to a beloved, of how he said the mountain was his true guru, his teacher, his home. We will speak of silence, of how sometimes words are not needed, how presence can teach better than any book, how stillness can be louder than thunder. But all that comes later. For now, simply rest. Let the image of the mountain stay with you. Reddish stone in the morning haze, a path winding up the slope, caves where seekers of truth have meditated for centuries. And somewhere there, in the shade of a banyan tree, sits a man, not young, with a white beard, with eyes that look through you, and at the same time directly into you. He is not doing anything, simply sitting, simply present. And in this presence is the answer to all questions. Or perhaps the disappearance of all questions, which is the same thing. Who are you? This is not a question for the mind. It is an invitation to go deeper than thoughts, deeper than feelings, to where everything arises. Breathe, feel your body. Notice how it relaxes, and allow the question to be. Do not search for an answer. Simply allow the question to sound quietly, like an echo in the mountains. Who am I? The mountain hears. The mountain knows. The mountain is silent. And in this silence is the beginning of the path. 1879. A small village called Tiruchuchi, near the ancient city of Madurai, South India. A land where gods walk among men, where temples stand at every crossroads, where life flows according to rhythms established thousands of years ago. In a family of Brahmins, to Sundaram Iyer and Alagamal, a second son was born. They named him Venkataraman, an ordinary name for an ordinary boy. No omens, no miracles. Just another child in a poor village where people live simply, pray to the gods, and hope their sons will continue their work. Sundaram Iyer was a lawyer, not brilliant, not wealthy, just an honest man who helped neighbors settle disputes. The family lived modestly. A house with clay walls, a courtyard where children played, the smell of cooking rice, the voices of women at the well. Venkataraman grew like all boys. He ran through the streets, climbed trees, played with his brothers and friends. Nothing special. Teachers did not notice genius in him. Neighbors did not see a future saint. His mother did not hear prophecies. Just a boy, healthy, a bit lazy, loving games more than books. But there was one peculiarity. Venkataraman slept so deeply that waking him was almost impossible. Friends sometimes played pranks, dragging his sleeping body around the room, standing him on his head, pinching him. But he would not wake. Only in the morning would he open his eyes, remembering nothing. Sleep consumed him completely, took him somewhere from which it was not easy to return. Perhaps this was the first sign, or simply a physical peculiarity. Who knows? Many years later, he would say that in deep sleep, we are closest to our true nature. There are no thoughts, no I, no world, only pure existence. Perhaps little Venkataraman already knew something then that others did not. When the boy was 12 years old, his father died. It was a blow. The family was left without a provider. Mother and children moved to relatives. First one place, then another. Venkataraman was sent to Madurai, to his uncle. There he was supposed to study, get an education, become someone, a lawyer, an official, a teacher. Madurai, city of the great Meenakshi, temple with its thousands of sculptures, with corridors stretching into infinity, with a pool of golden lotuses, a city where history breathes in every stone, a city that was supposed to be the beginning of Venkataraman's career. But the boy had no interest in a career. School seemed boring. Lessons passed by. He studied without enthusiasm, did homework carelessly, thought about something else. Teachers gave poor grades. His uncle grumbled, and Venkataraman looked out the window and thought about something that had no name. He loved to swim. The large temple pond became his favorite place. He could splash in the cool water for hours, diving, looking at the sky. Water calmed him. Water took away thoughts. In water he felt good. He also loved to wrestle. He was strong for his age. He could stand up for himself in a fight. Not a bully, but not a coward either. An ordinary boy who tested his strength against friends. And yet, something was not right. Something was quietly growing inside. Something he could not name. Sometimes he would freeze in the middle of a game. Sometimes he would look at the temple as if seeing something more than stones and statues. Sometimes he was silent when everyone around him was talking. Once a guest came to his uncle's house. an elderly relative from Tiruvannamalai. He spoke of the sacred mountain Arunachala, of the temple at its foot, of pilgrims who came there from all over India. Venkataraman listened. The name of the mountain entered him like a seed enters the earth. Arunachala. He did not know what it meant, did not know why his heart beat faster. He simply remembered. Later, many years later, he would say, I always knew about Arunachala from childhood itself. This was my real name, my real home. I simply did not understand it. But then he was just a boy in Madurai, going to school, playing with friends, eating rice with curry, sleeping his impossibly deep sleep, not praying especially fervently, not reading sacred books, not seeking a guru, not practicing yoga. Nothing foreshadowed what was to happen. Nothing prepared for it. It was like lightning from a clear sky, like an earthquake that begins on the most ordinary day. He was 16 when everything changed. 16. The age when boys think about girls, about future work, about proving themselves to the world. Venkataraman was thinking about something else, without knowing what. He was sitting in a room on the second floor of his uncle's house. An ordinary day, an ordinary hour, nothing special. And suddenly, fear of death, sudden, causeless, all-consuming, a fear that had not been there before, a fear for which there was no reason. But about that, in the next part of our journey. For now, simply remember this boy, Venkataraman from Madurai, son of a lawyer, poor student, good swimmer, lover of wrestling, one who slept so deeply that friends dragged him around the room. Nothing special, and at the same time, everything special. Because in every ordinary boy sleeps something extraordinary. In each of us, there is that which awaits its hour, that which will one day awaken. As it awakened in him, on that ordinary day, in that ordinary room, when fear came, and with it came liberation. Breathe. Remember yourself in childhood, that boy or girl you were, so ordinary, so unspecial, and at the same time unique, unrepeatable, carrying within something for which you still have no name. Perhaps it will yet awaken. Perhaps it is already awakening. right now, while you listen to these words, while you breathe, while you are. 1896, July, Madurai. Heat presses down on the city like a heavy hand. In a room on the second floor of his uncle's house sits 16-year-old Venkataraman. He is alone. His brother has gone out on errands. The house has fallen into afternoon drowsiness. And suddenly, fear. Not a thought about fear. Not a memory of something frightening. Pure, unmixed terror. Terror of death. Venkataraman felt, I am dying. Right now. In this moment. He was healthy. Nothing hurt. There was no reason for such a feeling, but it came and overwhelmed him completely, like a wave overwhelms a swimmer, like darkness overwhelms day. What does a person do when feeling the approach of death? Call for help? Run to a doctor? Pray to the gods? Venkataraman did none of these. He did something strange, something no one had taught him. He lay down on the floor, stretched his body out like a corpse, held his breath, pressed his lips together, and began to look, without turning away, without running, directly into the face of death. Very well, he said to himself, I am dying. What does this mean? What is death? What dies? The body lay motionless. It was as if dead. And Venkataraman looked at it, as if from outside. This body will die. It will be burned on a funeral pyre. It will become ash. But who is looking at this body? Who knows that it will die? In that moment, something happened. Something for which there are no words. Venkataraman understood. No, not understood with the mind, but saw directly that he was not this body, that there is something that watches, that is aware, that is present. And this something was never born and cannot die. Fear disappeared, not gradually, but instantly, like darkness disappears when you turn on the light. Not because Venkataraman convinced himself not to be afraid, but because he saw there is no one to be afraid. The one who was afraid was an illusion, a ghost, a shadow. Only this remained, pure presence, awareness, being without form. I that needs no name. Many years later, Ramana would describe this experience. He would say, "Fear of death entered me, and I asked myself, what dies? The body? But I am not the body. The mind? But I am not the mind. Something remained after everything I thought I was had been discarded. This something is I, the real I, which always was and always will be." This was not a philosophical conclusion, not the result of thinking. It was direct seeing. Like when you look at the sun, you do not need to prove that it shines. You simply see. From this moment, Venkataraman changed. Outwardly, he remained the same boy, went to school, ate, slept. But inside, something had shifted. Irreversibly, he was no longer the same. The world around him began to seem strange. Dreams, shadow theater. People bustled, argued, wanted things, and he watched as if from afar. What is all this for? What is the meaning of school, career, money, fame, if all this will disappear? If the one who strives for it is himself no more real than a character in a dream? For 6 weeks, Venkataraman lived in this strange state. He went to the temple, sat before statues of gods, and wept, not from grief, from something that had no name, from abundance, from fullness, from what would not fit into words. The family did not understand. His uncle was angry. The boy had completely gotten out of hand. His brother was puzzled. What was wrong with him? Sick? Gone mad? And then he left. It happened at the end of August. His brother had assigned him to copy a lesson as punishment for inattention at school. Venkataraman sat down to work, but his thoughts were far away. He was thinking about Arunachala, about the mountain he had once heard of, about the place that called to him, though he had never been there. He set aside his notebook, stood up, took 3 rupees, part of the money left for his uncle to pay fees. He wrote a note. "I am going in search of my father. Do not look for me. The money for the journey is enough." And he left the house forever. He was 16. He had no plan. He had no money except 3 rupees, barely enough for a ticket. He had no food. He had nothing but the pull, inexplicable, irresistible pull toward a mountain he had never seen. The train traveled through the night. Venkataraman looked out the window at passing villages, at fields, at stars. He did not think about the future, did not regret the past. He simply traveled to where his heart called. At Vilupuram, he got off. The money had run out. But Arunachala was still far away. He sold his earrings, the last thing he had, and bought a ticket onward. Then he walked, hungry, sleepless, not noticing exhaustion. 3 days of journey. 3 days that changed the world, though the world did not yet know it. And then Tiruvannamalai, a small town at the foot of the mountain. Venkataraman entered it in the early morning. First thing, to the temple. The doors were open, as if waiting for him. He passed through the outer courtyards, past columns, past statues, into the very heart of the sanctuary. There, in the half-darkness, stood a lingam, the sacred stone, symbol of Shiva. Venkataraman stopped before it. "I have come," he said, not in words, but with his whole being. "I have come, Father. Do with me what you will." And in that moment, he understood. The journey was over. He was home. He would go nowhere else. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, months into years. Venkataraman, now called simply Brahmana Swami, the young sage, sat in the temple. First, in the hall of 1,000 pillars, then in an underground chamber, dark, damp, inhabited by insects. He did not eat unless food was brought to him. He did not speak. For months he did not utter a word. He did not move. For hours, for days, he sat motionless, immersed in that state which had opened to him in the room in Madurai. The body suffered. Ants and termites gnawed at his legs. Mosquitoes covered his face. Dirt covered his skin. His hair became matted. But he did not notice. For him, the body did not exist. There was only this endless stillness, this presence, this eye that watched everything and remained untouched. Local boys sometimes threw stones at him, a strange man who did nothing One of the temple servants noticed the youth. He began to bring him food. Then others, those who sensed something unusual in him, began to come, simply to sit nearby in silence. Several years passed this way. Venkataraman slowly returned to bodily life, eating, washing, occasionally speaking a few words. But inside, nothing had changed. What had opened at 16 remained forever, unshakable, unchanging, like Arunachala itself. The mountain, it was everywhere. Wherever he looked, he saw its silhouette. Wherever he went, he felt its presence. For him, Arunachala was not just a mountain. It was alive. It was his teacher. It was reality itself, having taken the form of stone. Later, he would write hymns in its honor, poems full of love and longing, words of a lover addressed to the beloved. But this beloved is not a person. It is truth itself, being itself. What Hindus call Shiva, pure consciousness lying at the foundation of everything. Arunachala, he said, is not a symbol. It is a direct manifestation. The mountain is I. I am the mountain. There is no difference. When you look at Arunachala, you are looking at your own nature, at what has never changed, at what will be when everything else has gone. He never left its slopes. First, he lived in the temple, then in caves on the slope, then in small huts, and finally in the ashram that grew around him, but always in the shadow of the mountain, always under its gaze. Every day he performed pradakshina, circumambulation of the mountain, 14 kilometers barefoot along dusty roads, sometimes with disciples, sometimes alone, slowly, attentively, like a prayer expressed in steps. What did he feel looking at the reddish cliffs? What did he see in the morning mist enveloping the peak? We do not know. He rarely spoke of it, but those who were near noticed. His face glowed, as if the mountain shared something with him, or he shared with the mountain. Arunachala, the silent guru, teacher without words. It gave no instructions, did not answer questions. It simply was. And in this being was all the answer. So too did Ramana teach, not with long lectures, not with complex practices, with one question, simple as stone, deep as sky. Who am I? This is not a question for the mind. The mind can play with it, construct answers, philosophize. I am the soul. I am consciousness. I am a divine spark. All this is only words, labels, new masks. Ramana said, "Do not seek an answer. Seek the one who asks, who pronounces the word I. Where does it come from? Where does it go? Try right now. Close your eyes. Say to yourself, I, and look. Where does this I arise? Can you find the place where it begins? Can you see the one who pronounces it? Usually we think, I am my thoughts. But thoughts come and go, and I remains. We think, I am the body, but the body changes every moment. Cells die and are born. Where is the body that was 10 years ago? It is gone. But I is here. We think, I am my memory, but memory deceives. We forget most of the past. Sometimes we remember what never happened. How can something so unreliable be the foundation of what we are? Ramana proposed a simple experiment. Do not believe. Do not doubt. Simply look. Turn attention from outer to inner, from objects to the one who perceives them. Who sees these words? Not the eyes. They are only an instrument. Who hears the sounds around? Not the ears. They only transmit signals. Who knows that you exist? Who is the witness present in all experience? This is not philosophy. This is practice, self-inquiry, Atma Vichara in Sanskrit, the simplest and most difficult of practices, because it requires nothing and requires everything. You do not need to go to India. You do not need to change your life. You do not need to believe in gods. You need only one thing: to sincerely ask, who am I? And not to stop at an answer. Any answer is only a thought. And thoughts are not you. You are that which knows thoughts, that in which they appear and disappear. Ramana did not promise quick results. He said, practice constantly. Again and again, return to the question. Do not wait for an experience. Do not seek visions. Simply look. Who am I? And one day, perhaps in a minute, perhaps in years, the question will disappear. Not because an answer is found, but because the one who asked will dissolve like salt dissolves in water, like a wave returns to the ocean. What will remain? What was always there? Before questions, before answers, before I and you. Pure being, pure consciousness, pure bliss. Sat Chit Ananda, as they call it in India. But even these words are only signposts. The map is not the territory. The menu is not the food. To know the taste of water, you must drink it. To know who you are, you must look. Breathe, relax, and ask quietly, without strain. As you ask about something very simple, who am I? Do not search for an answer. Simply stay with the question. Let it sink deeper. Let it do its work. The mountain is silent, and in this silence is all you need to know. We spoke of the question, who am I? A simple question, a childlike question. But Ramana offered an even subtler approach, not to ask, who am I? But to look, where does this arise from? Imagine a thought, any thought. It appears, lives for a moment, and disappears. Where did it come from? Where did it go? You do not know. Thoughts arise from nowhere and go to nowhere, like waves on the surface of the ocean. But there is one special thought. The first thought, mother of all thoughts. This is the thought, I. When you wake in the morning, what happens first? Your eyes are still closed. Your body is still heavy with sleep. And suddenly, I woke up. I exist. And only then, I am hungry. I am late. I must get up. In deep sleep, there was no I. There were no thoughts. There was no world. There was only pure existence. And then, from this stillness, the first ripple appears, I, and with it, the whole world. Ramana said, trace this thought. not the content, but the very arising. Where does it come from? Where does it begin? This is subtle practice, not for the mind, but for attention. You do not think. You observe. Like a hunter observes the tracks of an animal. Like a scientist observes a phenomenon. Try now. Say to yourself, I. And in the moment the thought arises, look. Where did it come from? Can you catch the moment of its birth? Most likely you cannot. The thought is already here before you manage to notice its appearance. It is like trying to see lightning before it flashes. Impossible. But something happens when you try. Attention changes direction. Usually it is directed outward, to the world, to objects, to thoughts. But now it turns inward, to the source. And in this turning, something changes. Thoughts slow down, become more transparent. Gaps appear between them. Stillness shows through, like sky between clouds. Ramana called this abiding in the source, not going somewhere, not achieving something, simply remaining where everything arises from, not following thoughts, not pushing them away, simply staying at the beginning. It is like the source of a river. The river flows, powerful, turbulent, full of whirlpools. But somewhere high in the mountains, there is a place where it begins. A small spring. Quiet water seeping from stone. There is no rushing current there. There is only the beginning. Thoughts are the river. I is the source. Not a separate I with its history and problems, but the very arising itself. The very moment when from stillness the first movement is born. If you remain in this place, the river calms, not because you stopped it, but because you stopped feeding it. You no longer follow every thought. You do not pick it up, develop it, build stories from it. You are simply at the beginning, at the source, in the stillness from which everything arises. This is not a state of emptiness, not a trance, not disconnection. You are fully aware, perhaps more aware than usual. The world does not go anywhere. Sounds, sensations, even thoughts, everything continues. But you are not engaged. You watch from stillness. Ramana said, "This is your natural state. You do not create it. You simply Stop creating everything else. Stop building a false I from thoughts and stories. And then, what was always there remains. Some came to him and complained, "I try to find the source, but cannot. Thoughts are too fast. I get lost." He answered, "Who gets lost? Who says, 'I cannot'? Look at this one. Where does he arise from? Every difficulty is a new opportunity for inquiry. Every 'I cannot' is another thought that can be traced to its source. This is endless practice, not because it is difficult, but because it is always available. At any moment, in any situation, you can ask, "Where is this I from?" and turn attention to the beginning. At work, in conversation, in joy, in sorrow, in falling asleep, in waking. Always the same question, the same inquiry. Over time, said Ramana, this becomes natural. Like breathing, you do not think, "I must breathe." The body breathes on its own. So here too, attention returns to the source by itself, without effort, without reminder. And then the thought I loses its power. It may appear, but you know it is only appearing. It is not you. You are that in which it appears. Infinite space, silent presence. The mountain, Arunachala, stands motionless. Clouds come and go. Birds cry and fall silent. People climb the slope and descend. But the mountain remains, the same as it was 1,000 years ago, the same as it will be 1,000 years hence. You are like this mountain. Thoughts are like clouds. Let them drift. Let them change. Let them sometimes cover the sky. You are not the clouds. You are what remains. Breathe. Feel your body. And when the next thought arises, simply notice, where did it come from? Do not search for an answer. Simply look. In this, looking is the whole secret. Ramana described the mind as a tree, a huge tree with thousands of branches. Each branch is a thought. Desires, fears, memories, plans, all these are branches. They intertwine, spread, fill the whole sky of the mind. You can try to cut the branches, one by one, this thought, away, this desire, away, this fear, away. But branches grow back. You cut one, two appear. It is endless work, work that will never end. Ramana said, "Do not touch the branches. Find the root. Cut it, and the whole tree will fall on its own." The root is the thought I, the first thought, mother of all thoughts. From it grows everything else. Look carefully at any thought of yours. I want to eat. Who wants? I am afraid of the dark. Who is afraid? I hope for the best. Who hopes? I. Every thought is attached to this I. Without I, there are no thoughts. There is only pure perception. Sounds without one who hears. Images without one who sees. Sensations without one who feels. This is hard to understand with the mind. The mind itself is built on the thought I. It cannot envision existence without itself. It is like asking the I to see itself, like asking a knife to cut itself. But you can not understand, but see directly, without the mediation of mind. In the moment when Venkataraman lay on the floor expecting death, he saw. The thought I was simply a thought, not reality, but a thought. It could disappear, and something remained, something more real than all thoughts together. Ramana often used the metaphor of cinema. You sit in a theater. On the screen is drama. People love, suffer, die. You experience along with them. You forget it is only light on a white canvas. But if you remember, if you turn and look at the projector, the drama does not disappear. People on the screen continue to love and suffer, but you are no longer captive. You know it is only a play of light. The thought I is the main character in your film. You have identified with it so strongly that you have forgotten. You are not it. You are the one who watches. The screen on which the drama unfolds. The light that makes it possible. When this seeing happens, not as an idea, but as to direct experience, everything changes. Thoughts do not stop. The drama continues. But you no longer suffer as before. because you know it is not you. It is only a character, a role, a mask. Ramana did not call for destroying I. He said, investigate it, see what it is made of, find it if you can. And in this search, I dissolves, not because you killed it, but because it turned out it never existed. There was only the idea of it, an idea taken for reality. It is like searching for the source of an echo. You hear a voice and think someone is speaking. You follow the sound, but no one is there, only a reflection from walls, echo of a voice that has long fallen silent. The thought I is an echo, reflection of something that once was, the first identification of consciousness with body. This happened so long ago that it seems natural. It seems it was always so, but it was not. In deep sleep, there is, O I. In moments of complete absorption, in beauty, music, love, there is no I. In the gaps between thoughts, there is, O I. You know this from experience. You simply have not paid attention. Ramana suggested paying attention, noticing these gaps, remaining in them, not hurrying back to thoughts, allowing stillness to expand. And then the root is exposed. You see it, small, fragile, almost ridiculous. How could it hold such a huge tree? How could one thought create a whole world of suffering? And when you see the root dies on its own, you do not need to tear it out. It is enough to see that it is not real, that the tree stands not on it, but on emptiness. And in this emptiness, there are no problems, no suffering, no one who suffers. There is only this, simple presence, being without name, what Hindus call Atman, what Buddhists call emptiness, what Ramana called simply I, with a capital letter, I that is not opposed to something else. That includes everything. Breathe. Feel how your body grows heavier, how thoughts slow. And when I wants to arise, simply look. Where is it from? What is it made of? Perhaps it is not there. People came to Ramana with questions. What is God? Is there life after death? How does one achieve enlightenment? What is karma? What is fate? He listened. Sometimes he answered, but more often he turned the question around. Who is asking? Who wants to know about God? Who thinks about death? At first, this was irritating. A person came with a serious question, and he is told, "Look at who is asking." What kind of answer is that? But this is the answer, the only answer that matters. As long as you seek answers, you strengthen the one who seeks. Each new answer is new knowledge for I, a new brick in the wall of ego. I know what God is. I understand karma. I am close to enlightenment. Ramana saw this. He saw how people accumulated knowledge and did not come one step closer to truth. How they read books, listened to teachers, practiced for years, and remained the same. Because all this was done by I, and I cannot liberate itself from itself. What then to do? Not seek, not ask, not practice? No, do, but differently. Seek, but not an answer. Seek the one who seeks. This is a subtle difference, almost imperceptible, but it changes everything. An ordinary question is directed outward. What is God? The mind seeks a definition, a concept, an image. It finds an answer and calms down, or does not find and continues to seek. In both cases, I remains. The question, who am I, is directed inward, to the very source of questions. And here there is no answer, because the one who could receive an answer is himself the question. It is like a snake biting its tail, a chase that cannot end in victory, because hunter and prey are one and the same. And when this is understood, not by the mind, but by the whole being, the chase stops, not because the prey is caught, but because it turned out there was no one to catch. The hunter was a shadow. The prey was a mirage. What remains? What was before the chase began? Simple being, awareness without object, presence without one who is present. Ramana called this samadhi without effort, sahaja samadhi, natural state, not an achievement, but a return, not an acquisition, but a loss of everything extra. One disciple asked, "But something must remain. If I disappears, who will live? Who will eat, sleep, work, Ramana smiled. Life continues, he said. The body does what is needed. Words come when needed. Actions happen when needed. But there is no one who does. No doer. There is only action. This is hard to understand until you experience it. How can one live without I? How to make decisions? How to tell good from bad? Ramana answered, look at your body. The heart beats. Do you decide to beat? Blood flows. Do you control it? Food digests. Do you manage each stage? The body lives on its own, without your participation, without your control, without your I. Why do you think thoughts are different? Why do you think you think? Thoughts come. Thoughts go. You only observe, or not even observe. Observation happens. When this is understood, peace comes. Deep peace. Not because problems are solved, but because the one who had problems has dissolved. Problems may remain. Life continues to bring challenges. The body ages. People leave. The world changes. But there is no one to suffer from this. There is only what is happening. Without a second. Without a separate I that opposes the world. This is not indifference, not coldness. Ramana was one of the kindest people India ever knew. He cared for animals. He wept when his cow died. He smiled at children. He helped everyone who came. But he did not suffer, because there was no separate him who could suffer. There was only life living itself through this body. Compassion flowing on its own. Love requiring no effort. This is what opens when the question dissolves. Not an answer. Not understanding. Not achievement. Simply what is. Always was. Always will be. Breathe. Let the questions quiet. Do not seek answers. Let the seeker dissolve in what is sought. Ramana taught self-inquiry. Who am I? A question for a strong mind, for one who can direct attention inward and not be distracted, for one who is ready to seek, even without knowing what will be found. But he knew not everyone is like this. Not everyone is suited for the path of questioning. There is another path, no less deep, no less effective, the path of the heart, the path of devotion, the path of surrender. If self-inquiry is cutting branches from below, surrender is giving them away. I will not deal with this. You deal with it. I will not carry this burden. You carry it. Not my will, but yours. Ramana did not oppose these paths. He said, they lead to the same place. Self-inquiry dissolves I from within. Surrender dissolves it through giving. The result is one. Disappearance of separateness. Unity with what is. For some, it is easier to give than to seek. Easier to say, I do not know. You know. I cannot. You can. I surrender. This is not weakness. This is another kind of strength. Strength of trust. Strength of letting go. Strength of recognizing I am not the center of the universe. There is something greater. How is this practiced? In different ways. For some, through prayer, sincere address to the higher, not asking for something, but giving oneself. Do with me what you will. I am ready. For some, through service, action without claiming the result. I act, but not for myself, for you, for everyone, for life. For some, through love, to a teacher, to God, to truth. Love so strong that in it the lover is lost. Only love remains. Ramana himself experienced this. His relationship with Arunachala was a lover's relationship. He wrote hymns to her, full of longing, passion, devotion. He addressed her, you, not a symbol, but a living presence. In one hymn he says, you seized me and swallowed me whole. What am I to do now? I am yours, completely, utterly yours. This is surrender, not intellectual understanding, but a movement of the heart, not a technique, but love. And in this love, the same dissolution. When you completely give yourself, the giver disappears. Only what you give yourself to remains. The mountain, God, truth, or something without a name. Simply this. Ramana accepted both paths. He did not say only Vikara is right. He understood people are different. Some are closer to mind, some to heart. Some are strong in concentration, some in devotion. He often said, If you cannot practice self-inquiry, surrender. Lay everything at the feet of God. All worries, all fears, all desires. Say, "This is not mine. This is yours. Do what you will." And then the burden falls away. Not because problems are solved, but because you stop carrying them. Stop considering them yours. Let go. This is not passivity. Actions continue. The body does what is needed, but without the strain of personal will, without grasping, without my result, my victory, my defeat. Life flows, and you flow with it, not resisting, not controlling, trusting. Many asked Ramana, "To whom should I surrender? To which God? Shiva? Krishna? Christ?" He answered, "The name does not matter. What matters is sincerity. If for you God is Shiva, surrender to Shiva. If Christ, surrender to Christ. If simply life, surrender to life." The main thing is completeness, not half surrender, where with one hand you give and with the other you hold, but complete, total, unconditional. This is frightening, to give up control, to admit I do not know what is best, to trust something you do not understand. But in this very fear is possibility. When you pass through it, what was hidden opens. That which always carried you, that which never failed. You simply did not notice. You were too busy with control, too sure of your I. Surrender is simply seeing what is. You were never separate, never in control. Everything was always done through you, not by you. And when you see this, resistance leaves. What remains is peace, the deep, unshakable peace of one who has finally let go. Breathe. Feel tension leaving with each exhale. And if you wish, say quietly, "I surrender," not knowing to whom, not knowing to what. Simply, "I surrender," and allow this to be. The path is simple. Ask, "Who am I?" or surrender, and everything will open. So said Ramana. But those who practiced knew it is not as easy as it sounds. On the path there are obstacles, stones you stumble over, pits you fall into. Ramana knew of them, and helped overcome them. The first obstacle is drowsiness. You sit to practice. Close your eyes. Direct attention inward and fall asleep or drift into drowsiness. Thoughts become sticky, unclear. Attention blurs. Ramana said, "This is normal." The mind is not used to stillness. When thoughts slow, it thinks it is time to sleep. This is habit. It will change. What to do? Do not fight drowsiness by force. That only strengthens it. But do not give in either. Find balance. If you fall asleep sitting, stand up. Wash your face with cold water. Take a walk and return to practice. Over time, the mind will learn to be quiet and alert at the same time. This is possible. Ramana himself was living proof. The second obstacle is wandering of mind. You ask, "Who am I?" And a moment later, you are thinking about tomorrow's tasks, or about what someone said yesterday, or about food. The mind carries you away like a river carries a leaf. Ramana said, "This too is normal. The mind has wandered all its life. It will not stop at once. Do not be angry with it. Do not be disappointed. Simply return. You noticed you were carried away. Return. Carried away again. Return again. 100 times. Carried away. 100 times return. This is the practice. Not sitting in stillness, but returning. Every return is a victory. Every time you notice wandering and return, you strengthen attention. It is like a muscle. The more you exercise it, the stronger it becomes. The third obstacle is despair. You practice. Day after day, week after week, perhaps year after year, and nothing happens. No enlightenment, no special experiences. The same I, the same problems. Ramana said, "Do not seek results. Do not wait for special states. The very waiting is an obstacle. You practice not in order to achieve something. You practice because it is the only thing that makes sense. If you seek enlightenment, you strengthen the one who wants to become enlightened. This is still I. Only now it wants not money and fame, but spiritual achievements. The difference is small. Let go of expectations. Practice for the sake of practice. As you breathe, not for a result, simply because you are alive. The fourth obstacle is spiritual ego. This is the subtlest, the most cunning. You practice and begin to feel special, spiritual, advanced. You look at others, at their worldly concerns, and think, I am above this. I seek truth. Ramana warned, this is a trap. Ego dressed in spiritual clothes is still ego, perhaps even more dangerous, because it is harder to notice. One who thinks, I am spiritual, holds even tighter to I. One who considers, I have progressed, still measures progress. But for whom is the progress? For I, which must disappear. Ramana was a model of humility. For 50 years, people called him enlightened, Maharshi, great sage. He never accepted these titles, never said, I am awakened. For him, there was no one who could awaken. When disciples came and prostrated before him, he was embarrassed. When they called him God, he answered, I am the same as you. No difference. Only you think you are separate, and I know there is no separation. This is true liberation. Not I became free, but there never was anyone who was bound. The fifth obstacle is hurry. You want faster, more intense, more practice, more effort, more. American and European students especially suffered from this, used to achieving goals, used to progress that can be measured. Ramana said, do not hurry. This is not a race. This is life. Practice gently, naturally, as a flower opens, not by force, but by warmth of the sun. Too much effort, and you strain the mind, and a strained mind cannot let go. It holds even when it tries to let go. Relax. Trust. Let the practice do itself through you. These obstacles are not enemies. They are teachers. Each shows something important. Drowsiness teaches alertness. Wandering teaches returning. Despair teaches patience. Spiritual ego teaches humility. Hurry teaches gentleness. Do not fight them. Thank them and go on. Breathe. If you notice drowsiness, let it be. If the mind wanders, let it wander. Simply notice. Simply return. Without battle, without victory, without defeat. Many came to Ramana and asked, "How can I practice if I am not a monk? I have work, a family, children, responsibilities. I cannot sit in a cave and meditate for hours. What am I to do?" Ramana smiled. He himself never required people to leave the world. He said, "Practice is not in what you do. Practice is in who does." You can wash dishes and ask, "Who is washing?" You can drive a car and notice, "Who is driving?" You can talk with a colleague and observe, "Who is speaking? Who is listening?" Self-inquiry does not require a special place, does not require special time. It requires only one thing: remembering. To remember the question, to return to it again and again. Imagine an ordinary day. You wake up. The first thought is something about tasks, plans, problems. Stop. Who is thinking this thought? Who woke up? One moment, and you are already in practice. No need to sit in lotus posture. No need to close your eyes. Simply notice. Who is here? You eat breakfast. The taste of food. The sound of spoon against plate. Thoughts run ahead to a meeting, a conversation, to what needs to be done. Stop. Who is eating? Who is thinking about the future? Who is here in this moment? Ramana said, "You do not need to stop thoughts. That is impossible. Thoughts will flow like a river flows. But you can watch the river without falling into it. You can notice thoughts and return to the source. At work, there are especially many opportunities. Stress, pressure, someone criticizes you, something goes wrong, you feel irritation, anxiety, offense. Excellent. This is fuel for practice. Who is offended? Who is anxious? Who is angry? Do not suppress emotions. Do not pretend they are not there. Simply look. Where do they arise from? To whom do they come? If you truly investigate, emotions lose their grip, not because you defeated them, but because you saw they come to one who is not there. This does not mean becoming unfeeling. Ramana was not unfeeling. He wept when dear ones left. He laughed when something was funny. He was angry when he saw injustice. But he was not captured by it. Emotions passed through him like wind passes through an open window. In relationships, it is even more difficult. Close people are mirrors. They show what you do not want to see. Someone does something and you react automatically, instantly. Anger, offense, fear, jealousy. Stop. Who is reacting? Where does it come from? Ramana did not say, leave people. He said, use people as practice. Every conflict is an opportunity to see your eye. Every irritation is a pointer. Something inside is defending. Something inside considers itself separate, vulnerable, in need of protection. Look at this something. Find it. And perhaps you will see that it is not there. One devotee complained to Ramana, "My wife makes me unhappy. What should I do?" Ramana answered, "Who is unhappy? Find him." This sounds cruel, but it is not evasion. It is the deepest answer. As long as you think someone can make you unhappy, you are a slave. You are captive to circumstances. But if you investigate, who is this unhappy one? The captivity begins to crumble. Not because circumstances change. Circumstances may remain the same, but you change. Or more precisely, you see that the one who suffered never existed. There was only the idea of him, an idea taken for reality. In everyday tasks, the same practice. You wash the floor. Who is washing? You cook food. Who is cooking? You walk down the street. Who is walking? You do not need to constantly verbalize the question. That is tiring. It is enough to direct attention. Instead of completely immersing in the action, leave part of attention on the one who acts. Like a flashlight, illuminating both the scene and the one who watches. Over time, this becomes natural. You do not think, "I must practice." Attention returns on its own, like a bird returns to its nest, like water flows downward. And then work remains work, but something changes. You do the same things, but without strain, without my result, my failure. Action flows, and you observe. Or even, observation simply happens. Ramana himself worked in the ashram. He cut vegetables in the kitchen, helped build buildings, stitched leaves into plates. He did not consider himself above this. For him, there was no difference between meditation in a cave and chopping onions. All is one practice. All is one presence. He said, if you think spirituality is something special, separate from ordinary life, you have not yet understood. Spirituality is life itself. Every moment, every breath, every step. The world is not an obstacle. The world is a school. Every situation is a lesson. Every person is a teacher, if you look rightly. Breathe. Feel your body. And in the next moment, at work, at home, on the street, remember, who is here? Who is experiencing this? Just one moment of remembering. That is enough. Ramana spoke little. Especially in the first years, he did not speak at all. For months, he sat in silence. People came, asked questions. He did not answer. Simply looked. Simply was present. And strangely, people left changed. Without receiving an answer to their question, they received something greater, something that cannot be conveyed in words, something transmitted only by presence. One visitor described it this way: I came with 100 questions. Sat before him. He looked at me, and all questions disappeared, not because I received answers, but because the questioner fell silent. This is the power of silence, not emptiness, but fullness, not absence of words, but presence of what is beyond words. Ramana said, silence is the best teacher. Words create new thoughts. Silence dissolves them. Words address the mind. Silence addresses what is deeper than mind. In the Indian tradition, this is called mauna, sacred silence. Not simply not speaking, but a state in which the mind is calmed, thoughts have quieted, and only pure presence remains. Ramana was mauna. He did not practice silence. He was silence. Even when he spoke from stillness. Words arose from silence and returned to silence. People came to him from all over the world. Scientists, philosophers, seekers, skeptics. Many expected lectures, explanations, instructions. But Ramana rarely gave lectures. He simply sat. Sometimes he answered questions, briefly, precisely. Sometimes he simply remained silent. And this silence worked, somehow. Paul Brunton, a British journalist, came to India in the 1930s. He traveled to many teachers and wrote books about them. But with Ramana, everything was different. He sat in the hall, looked at the sage, and felt something changing inside, without words, without explanations. Later he would write, "It was as if his stillness was pouring into me. My thoughts slowed. My restlessness quieted. I felt a peace I had never known before." This was not suggestion, not hypnosis. It was contagion by stillness. Like Firtlights, fire, like water finds its level. Ramana explained it simply. There is no separation. When the mind of the teacher is calm, it calms the minds of those nearby. Not through words, but directly, because at depth, we are not separate. It is like how one tuning fork makes another vibrate, without touching it, without applying effort. Simply resonance, simply one frequency. Many disciples said, "I understood more from his silence than from his words." Words can be misunderstood. Words can be memorized and repeated without understanding. But silence cannot be faked. It either is or it is not. One of the devotees, Muruganar, a poet, spent 25 years near Ramana. He wrote thousands of poems about his teacher, but the main thing was not what was written. The main thing was sitting at his feet for hours, for days, in silence. In this silence, transmission happened, not of information, but of state, not of knowledge, but of being. What cannot be said can only be shown. What cannot be explained can only be. Ramana never called himself a guru. He said, "The guru is not a person. The guru is truth itself, the self itself. An external teacher is only a pointer. The real teacher is within you." But at the same time, presence near him changed people. This is a paradox. There is no external guru, but external presence works. Because it reminds. It awakens what is already within. As the sun does not give light to the lotus, the lotus opens on its own. But without the sun, it will not open. So, too, here. Ramana did not give enlightenment. He created conditions in which it could happen on its own. Sometimes people came with very complex questions, philosophical, metaphysical. They expected long discussions. But Ramana would look at them and remain silent, and the question would dissolve. Not because it was unimportant, but because the one who asked, for a moment, ceased to exist. In that moment was the answer. Not verbal, not conceptual. Direct experience of what was asked about. One scholar came with a question about the nature of reality. Ramana looked at him and asked, "Who wants to know?" The scholar began to answer and stopped. He understood. The question about reality requires investigation of the one who asks. And in this investigation, the question itself changes. Silence is not absence of an answer. It is another kind of answer. Deeper, more direct. In the modern world, we are used to words, to explanations, to information. We think. To understand, one must hear. To learn, one must read. But there are things that are not transmitted in words. Love, beauty, truth. You can read 1,000 books about love and not know what it is until you love yourself. So, with what Ramana taught, you can read all his books, learn all the answers, and remain where you were, because this is not information. This is transformation, and transformation requires not words, but presence. Now, as you listen to these words, try to feel the silence between them, the pauses, the gaps, the stillness from which sounds arise and to which they return. This stillness is always here, under thoughts, under words, under everything you think you are. Ramana simply pointed to it, again and again, with words when needed, with silence when words were unnecessary. Breathe. Feel the pauses between inhale and exhale, small moments of stillness. In them is the same thing that was in Ramana's silence, the same presence, the same depth. You are this stillness. Words are only ripples on the surface. In Ramana's ashram lived not only people, there were animals, many animals, cows, dogs, monkeys, peacocks, squirrels, crows, and Ramana related to them not as pets. He related to them as beings equal in their capacity to be. Among all the animals, there was one cow. Her name was Lakshmi. She came to the ashram as a calf. She was given to Ramana in 1926. From that day until her death, she was part of this place, part of this story. Lakshmi was an unusual cow. She came to Ramana every day, stood at his door, waited for him to come out. When he appeared, she would lay her head on his shoulder. He stroked her, spoke with her, and in her eyes there was such stillness, such depth, that people fell silent looking at her. Ramana spoke of her with enormous tenderness. He called her a great soul. He said she knows more than many scholars who come here with questions, because she does not ask. She simply is. When talks were held at the ashram, Lakshmi sometimes came and stood at the entrance, listening. People were surprised. A cow listening to philosophical discussions? But Ramana smiled. He knew she was not listening to words. She was feeling the presence. In June 1948, Lakshmi fell ill. Ramana came to her, sat beside her, placed his hand on her head, and remained with her until the very end. As she was dying, he looked into her eyes, and those who were there said, in that moment, something happened, something elusive. Ramana said, Lakshmi has attained liberation. She will not return to this world of suffering. For her, the circle is complete. She was buried on the ashram grounds. A memorial was placed over her grave, and today people come to it to honor the memory of a cow who, in Ramana's words, was enlightened. This may seem strange, an enlightened cow? But think, what is enlightenment? It is not a set of knowledge, not philosophical concepts. It is abiding in one's true nature, without thoughts about past and future, without desire to be someone else, without resistance to what is. Animals live exactly this way. They do not think, who was I yesterday? Who will I become tomorrow? They simply are, here and now. In this sense, they are closer to truth than most people. Of course, not every animal is enlightened in the sense Ramana understood. But Lakshmi was special. In her presence, people felt peace. She radiated something that is hard to describe in words. There were dogs in the ashram too. Ramana loved them. He knew each by name. When a dog was sick, he cared for it. When one died, he was there. Once a stray dog came to the ashram, thin, sick, barely alive. People wanted to drive it away, fearing it would infect other animals. But Ramana stopped them. He said, "She came here to die. Let her die in peace." The dog was allowed to stay. Ramana came to her every day, stroked her, sat nearby, and when she died, he was with her, as with Lakshmi, as with any being that needed his presence. Monkeys also lived on the ashram grounds. They were noisy, sometimes stole food, created chaos. But Ramana related to them with humor and patience. He told stories about them, as if about members of a large family. There was one monkey Ramana called the leader. She came to him at a certain time, sat nearby, and sat motionless while Ramana meditated, then left. Every day, the same ritual. Ramana said, "She knows, she feels, she has no words, but she does not need words." Birds, too, were part of the ashram. Peacocks, crows, sparrows. Ramana fed them, talked with them, and they were not afraid of him. They would sit nearby, within arm's reach. One visitor asked, "Why do you pay so much attention to animals? Are not people more important? Is it not they who need your teaching?" Ramana answered, "Who said they do not receive teaching? The self is one in all beings, in human, in cow, in dog, in bird. The difference is only in form, in the shell. But what looks out from the eyes of a cow is the same as what looks out from your eyes." This is not sentimentality, not simply love of animals. This is deep understanding of the nature of consciousness. Consciousness does not belong to humans. It is everywhere, in everything. The human mind is only one form of its manifestation, not the only one, and perhaps not the highest. Animals do not think about enlightenment. They do not meditate. They do not ask, "Who am I?" But in their simplicity, there is something humans can learn from. Absence of excess. Presence in the moment. Acceptance of what is. When you look into the eyes of an animal, what do you see? There is the same depth, the same mystery, the same unfathomable presence. Ramana saw this, and so he related to every being with equal respect. Now, lying in darkness, remember some animal you have known. A dog, a cat, a bird. Remember its eyes. What was in them? Not thoughts, not concepts, simply life, simply being. This is the same thing that is in you, under thoughts, under words, under everything you call yourself. One consciousness manifesting in infinite forms. Breathe. Feel this connection with all that lives, with every being. You are not separate. You are part of one whole. Like Lakshmi, like the dogs of the ashram, like the monkeys and birds, one life, infinitely varied. Years passed. Ramana aged. His hair turned white. His skin became wrinkled. His movements grew slower. But his eyes remained the same depth, the same clarity, the same presence that people felt from first glance. In 1948, a small tumor appeared on his left arm. Doctors examined it and said, sarcoma, malignant. Ramana was 69 years old. Disciples were horrified. They begged him, "Let us treat you. Let us operate. Let us try everything." Ramana smiled and said, "Do what you think necessary. This body is not I." Operations were done. 1, 2, 3, 4, the tumor returned. Doctors suggested amputation. Ramana refused. He said, "Why? The body has already done its work. Let it go its way." The pain was severe, but Ramana did not complain, did not moan. People who came to him in these last months were amazed. He suffers, but in his eyes there is no suffering. He feels pain, but does not identify with it. One disciple asked, "Bhagavan, why do you not heal yourself?" "You can." Ramana looked at him with tenderness and said, "They take this body for Bhagavan and attribute suffering to it. What a pity! They grieve that I am going. But where can I go? I am here. Where can I go?" These words became one of his most famous sayings. In them is the whole essence of his teaching. What you really are does not go and does not come. It is not born and does not die. It is always here. The body comes and goes. Thoughts come and go. Feelings, emotions, experiences come and go. But what observes all this remains, unchanging, beginningless, endless. The last months Ramana spent in a small room. He lay on a couch, too weak to move. But he continued to receive visitors. People passed by him, one after another, and he looked at each. This gaze was his final teaching. On the 14th of April, 1950, in the evening, disciples gathered near his room. They sang a hymn to Arunachala, the same one Ramana had written many years before. His voice, weak, barely audible, joined the singing. At 8:47 in the evening, he took his last breath and stopped. At that moment, many people across India saw a bright star flying across the sky. A meteor, or something else. Those who were in the ashram said later, they felt something vast pass through them. A wave, a presence, something indescribable. Ramana's body was buried at the foot of Arunachala. Over the grave, a temple was built, the Samadhi. Today, people come there from all over the world. They sit in silence, meditate, and many say the presence is still here, as strong as it was in his lifetime. How is this possible? If Ramana died, how can his presence be felt? The answer is in the teaching itself. Ramana never identified himself with the body. He said, "I am not this body. I am the awareness in which the body appears and disappears. And if this is so, death of the body changes nothing. Awareness remains. It does not depend on form. It is boundless." Ramana's disciples continue to transmit his teaching. The ashram still operates. Books are published in all languages. But the main thing is not the books or the ashram. The main thing is what Ramana pointed to, and this is available to everyone, here and now. Death is not an end. It is dissolution of form. A wave returns to the ocean. It does not disappear. It becomes the ocean. Was it ever anything else? Ramana taught, "You already are what you seek. You already are the ocean. The thought that you are a separate wave is just a thought. It arises in you. It dissolves in you. But you remain. When the body dies, what happens? Thoughts cease. Feelings cease. The experience of I am this body ceases. But that in which all this happened does not cease, because it never began. This is hard to understand with the mind. The mind is part of what disappears. It cannot grasp what remains after its disappearance, but there is something in you that knows, without words, without concepts, direct knowing. When Ramana was dying, he was not afraid, did not resist, did not cling to life. He simply allowed the body to go, like letting go of old clothes, like exhaling air. In this is a lesson for each of us, not in how not to fear death, but in how to see who dies, who is afraid, who clings. If you find the answer to this question, fear disappears on its own, not because you become brave, but because there is no one left to be afraid. Now, lying in darkness, feel this body, its heaviness, its warmth, the breath that happens on its own. This body is temporary. It came and one day will go. But what is aware of this body was before it and will be after. This is not faith. This is investigation. Look for yourself. What was before the first thought this morning? What will be after the last thought, before sleep? What is between thoughts? Ramana left and remained. Where could he go? Where can you go? You are that from which there is no exit, the space in which everything happens. Breathe, feel, be. There is no death. There is only this. We have come a long way this night, from the sacred mountain, Arunachala, to the question that changes everything, from the boy from Madurai to the sage whose presence changed people, from fear of death to discovery of what does not die. Now, let us return to the beginning, to the simplest thing, to where everything begins and everything ends. Who are you? Not a name, not a profession, not a role, not a story. Who are you? This question does not require an answer. It requires investigation. It requires looking, not thinking, not analyzing, simply looking. When you look within, what do you find? Thoughts, images, memories, plans, fears, hopes. All of this comes and goes, changes, transforms. But there is something that remains. There is the one who observes, the one who is aware, the one who knows that a thought came, that a feeling arose, that breathing continues. This observer does not change. It was in you in childhood, when you looked at the world with wide open eyes. It was in you in youth, when you sought your place. It is here now, as you listen to these words. Ramana said, "This is you, not the body, not the mind, not the story, but this silent presence, pure awareness, that in which everything appears. Tat Tavam Asi, you are that." These ancient words from the Upanishads point to one simple truth. You are not a separate being trying to find something beyond yourself. You already are what you seek. This does not need to be achieved, does not need to be deserved, does not need to be understood by the mind. It is already here, was always, will always be. The only thing needed is to stop looking elsewhere. Imagine you are looking for glasses that are already on your face. You turn the house upside down, rummage in pockets, ask others, "Where are my glasses?" And they are on your nose. You are looking through them and not seeing them. So with this, you are looking for yourself through yourself. You already are what you seek. The seeker is the sought. The questioner is the answer. Ramana did not create a new teaching. He simply pointed again and again at what was always obvious. But the obvious is hardest to see because we look past it. We seek something complex, special, distant, but truth is simple, ordinary here. This night is coming to an end. The body is relaxed. The mind is quieting. Breathing is becoming softer. Where do you go when you fall asleep? The world disappears. Thoughts disappear. Even the sense of I disappears. But something remains. Otherwise, who wakes in the morning? Who knows that sleep was deep? This something does not depend on sleep and waking. It is the background on which all states appear. Deep sleep, dreams, waking, they all come and go in it, but it remains. Ramana called this the fourth state, Turiya. But this is not quite accurate, because it is not the fourth. It is the only one. The other three are only its modifications, like waves are modifications of the ocean. Now, allow everything to be as it is. Do not try to understand anything. Do not try to achieve anything. Do not try even to relax. Simply be. Breathing happens on its own. The heart beats on its own. Thoughts arise on their own. You do not need to do anything. You are not the doer. You are the space in which everything happens. Ramana Maharshi is one of those who awakened, but he is not the only one. Throughout all human history, there have been people who discovered this truth. Buddha, Lao Tzu, Meister Eckhart, Rumi, Nisargadatta Maharaj, Eckhart Tolle, many names, one truth. In this series, we will meet them, learn their stories, listen to their words, not to accumulate knowledge, but in order, through different pointers, to see the same thing, what they all pointed to. Each teacher is like a finger pointing at the moon. The fingers are different. The moon is one. Do not look at the finger. Look where it points. Ramana pointed simply, "Who am I?" Others will point differently. But the direction is one, to what you are, to your true nature, to the home you never left. Now, let go even of these words. They have done their work. They have brought you here, to this stillness, to this peace, to this presence. You are that, not someday, not after practice, not after enlightenment. Now, here, always. Breathe and feel how breath becomes quieter. The body grows heavier, eyelids close, thoughts dissolve. Only this remains: stillness, peace, presence. Fall asleep, knowing who you are, or not knowing, but allowing the knowing to be. It will not leave. It cannot leave, because it is you. In the following episodes of our series, we will meet other great teachers, hear their stories, touch their wisdom. Until next time.